there is this twisted distortion philosophy whereby it twists cause and effect and uses it as a means of distortion and control and manipulation and blaming the victim, which I have talked about before. And in that, it permeates all of our society. It is a means of controlling and not allowing free flow of divinity, but forcing it to go in unnatural ways and paths. It is a parent that says, I will use violence to control your behavior, and then I will tell you the reason for that violence is your behavior, and if you don't want to have violence, you have to acquiesce to my will and whim. And it is so permeated throughout the culture, it's in everything of the culture, it's always backing it up. So that even though, and it's, especially by the time you get to teenagers, in the teenagers you will see the soul of the teenager is trying to really break out of this distortion. But everything is so oppressive that they really are never given that true divine expression. And the idea is that you abide by these sets of standards, laws, rules, actions, and if you do not abide by them, I have the right to, I'm trying to think of the word, control you, to enslave you, to kidnap you, to hold you in a room, bondage. I can use bondage, I can use physical violence against you, and you have to accept this. And this is a distortion. This is a cause and effect, a distortion of cause and effect. What happens then as you go through life, when this is used against you, and your divinity is saying this is wrong, you have been trained and twisted to, instead of saying, wait, the person who is using this to control me is wrong, you instead have been trained to see how you can change your behavior. You will even hear this said in many spiritual communities. How can you change your behavior? You can't control another person, so how can you change your behavior? This is just a fluffy way of saying, be a good slave now. And the person who is being controlled, being victimized, is being told, you have to adjust your behavior to make your situation better. And this will eventually bring you in some place or another under the control of another being, I will say, being, group, whatever. In order to find a place where you will feel safe and secure, you will have to follow the rules and be under the guidance of some other being. And you have to find a way to change your behavior. That is part one. Part two of it is the idea of, once again, of a slave working a servant type in mentality of, I have done this, so therefore I am owed. So you can say, someone says, I have followed the rules of the ones that are controlling me. I have done the work. I've put in the time. I've put in the effort. Therefore, I deserve to be treated this way. I deserve to have this. I deserve to have that. In divinity, there is never a concept or an idea of deserved. It's not even there. It's not even... because just what... You're just naturally flowing, moving with divinity, and it just happens naturally. It's not deserved. Deserves gives you the idea or the concept that somehow that which should be flowing to you naturally is not happening. Something that's hindering it. And it invokes a resentment to whomever or whatever is preventing you from getting the thing that you have done, you deserve, because you've done the work to get it. This whole concept is flawed. Okay, God is, and divinity is free-flowing and abundant, and you just move with it, and things just naturally occur, and you are always safe. There is no unsafety. There is not, I have to do this or I won't be safe. That is It doesn't work like that. In divinity, when you're in divinity, there is no unsafe. Unsafe is not a concept either. Those are all false manipulative concepts that undermine truly embracing divinity. Because you may come to feel pulled to and feel aligned with some parts of divinity, but these philosophies that have been trained into you, even not just in physical lives, but even in the in-between lives, the idea you have to learn these lessons, you have to accomplish these things, all of that is distortions. It is distortions. You do not have to go and learn this lesson. That is false. That is bizarre. That is not correct. When you find yourself in an undesirable place where you realize and recognize something in your deep core is saying this is not in line with divinity, this is not where I want to be or how I want to be, you have been trained to use these two aspects of my fault, what did I do, what do I have to change, and I deserve something else. And it becomes, I want to say a mesh, but it's not really in a mesh. It's like a circling, flowing, dark version of what divinity always moves. A soul, and the divinity moves, it's like a orb of light flowing and moving and always balancing. What is created when you enter into this space is like an orb of dark, pokey, oily, sticky stuff. And it becomes, I will not say balancing, but it's always unbalancing the soul. And it moves and froze to and back and forth. And it will throw in, you caused this by your behavior and you don't deserve anything any better. And then his response is, but I deserve this and this because I did this and this and this. I followed the rules. And I know I must, what did I do to cause this to happen? What do I have to change to fix this? These are the things that are flowing around and catching and creating an imbalance and anger. And as long as you are focusing on these false levelers, because they are not real balanced, they're not really rebalanced, but you believe that they might, as long as you keep focusing on them rather than true divinity, you will never find balance. It is impossible. As long as you are using these to help bring balance into your life, it will never be achieved. It will never be experienced because they will always keep you off balance. They will always undermine divinity. And as you hear this, I know that it is, well then, I'm lost. What about this? What about that? There is a saying, in order for a lie to be believed, there must be some elements of truth in it. In order for these distortions to exist, they have to distort something that is real. There is a natural element of cause and effect, but it is so quiet and just natural and balanced. You do not have to ever think about it or consider it or debate it. But that, once it gets into the idea of thinking about it and debating about it and creating things in relation to it, that is where the distortions come in. Be very careful of one that is popular of that distortion of you have to work to have food, security. What are you bringing into society? How are you adding to society? These are all false and distorted and corrupted. Yes, first of all, whether it is a soul or a being or anything that has ever been created, when you are created full and complete and whole, and you need nothing. You have everything you need. From that point, it is not what you need, it is it's an expression of who you are and how you move through the all, and you enjoy the moving through the all because you just move through the all. If one wishes to just be stagnant in the quiet of the Om, then that is okay. You do not have to do anything more than that to be in divinity. But that was not brought into the physical here in this time space. In this time space, if you wish to be quiet in the Om, you cannot have food, you cannot have shelter, you cannot have meaningful companionship, because everything around you is ripping at that. So it is required that you must do more than that. And no matter what you do, you will always feel this sense of lack, because you are not even in the quiet Om of your soul. The physical manifestations, expressions, that which has been created in the universe of the souls as physical expressions, was created under flawed and distorted concepts and ideas. You remember how it was that Yeshua said, "Look at the birds. They do not work or toil, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them." This is what it is in the Om. Yes, a bird builds a nest because it wants to build a nest, because it wants to build a home. It enjoys the home that it builds, but it just gathers that which is there. It does not go and work for another bird half of the day, and then that bird will give them a few sticks to use to build on their own nest. The bird builds their nest. They flow freely, and they move freely, and gather, and they sing, and they sing, and they play in the wind, and they sun themselves, and they splash in the water and take baths. And there is no work that is required. They get the food because their food is there. There are the seeds. There are everything that it needed for the bird is provided for the bird. If it is not provided for the bird, then something has come in and disrupted the free flow of divinity. That is how the physical expressions of the soul should be, and I will use the word should be, if it were in divinity, experiencing life, a physical life. They should be able to free flow and free move. Whatever they need will be there, and they can create with it of their own. The creation and the move and the flow will create whatever it is they are compelled from their soul to do. And they should not be, there would not be I have to do this other thing that I'm not really inclined to do in order to just survive. The earth is filled with food. There is always an abundance of food. There is always an abundance of any kind of shelter to be built. There's plenty of souls here with which to have companionship. There is inspiration and the working together to do anything that should be desired to do. If some souls want to come together and create or do something more. But that is not what is happening. And everything that is experienced here in any of the physical lives, there is always, you have to give up something of yourself in order to be able to exist. And they are always requiring you to give more and more and more. So how does this apply to that which is experienced in the lives? Your divinity is always speaking out and always trying to get your attention and always trying to naturally align. It is not really completely, the expression is saying, but you cannot do that here, for they will just rip and tear at you, and that is true. That is the conundrum we are facing here in the darkest of the dark. For we know what the physical expressions of the souls would be like if divinity would be allowed to freely flow. And we know that it can be accomplished quite easily. But there is that in-between place. The place from which you are in where the darkness and the distortions are all around. And before you get fully into the light, and has been created in the souls and in their experiences both great fear and an inability to know how to act in the place of the Om. It is natural. It is there. It is there in the center. But if only one soul here and one soul there go into it, all those around that soul that are not in the Om, that are not in line with divinity, that are of these distortions, they will besiege upon the one that is in the Om, and they will rip and tear and be relentless. And in their reasonings, they will give reasons. This one was not contributing to society. This one was not following the rules. This one, and therefore we cannot allow this one here because it will disrupt all that we have done. And it is necessary to follow these patterns. The children must be in school. They must learn skills so that they can be productive member of society. And we cannot just give homes to everyone, because then no one would work for us. If no one would work for you, then obviously you're not in line with divinity, because divinity would obviously have everyone working together. But if you are not desiring to work, then it is because it is not divine. The end. The society there is so pervasive, so profound, that even when we have sent those in to bring in divinity, to encourage divinity, they are martyred and their messages corrupted, so that divinity will not move through freely. There are those that have existed, and they have always existed, some, that in their societies have come to speak these words, these ideas, these thoughts, and have shown by their own lives this is what they are doing. They are silenced and their ideas corrupted. Even being in the Om is corrupted with more rules, and you must do this way, and you must do this that way. This is the way this one was in the Om, and therefore this is how all must go into the Om. Follow their paths, do things the way they did it, and then you are once again lost and are not in your divine center. It will not be allowed to continue as this way. And it is becoming more and more obvious that no matter how much we move in and awaken those into it, the distortions always come back in, because there is so much fear, and there is so much violence of those that see those in their own, and who see them as easy prey. Such foolishness, such foolishness. We will always protect and strengthen those of the Om. Sometimes, yes, not sometimes, we have found it necessary to remove those that are in the Om center of divinity, that have come amongst you. We have removed them from remaining there, because the distortions were so destructive and undermining and bringing such anguish to those in the divine place. Yes, because you see, once you're in the divine place, though it is divine and in harmony with all that is divine and all that exists, in that place where it is so distorted, it is very, very uncomfortable, and it is very painful to be there. We are not going to continue to do that. Bring in something and hope to bring in light, and then pull them out because it's too much for them, and try it again and again. That is not working in the dark. There is going to have to be a clearing away of all the dark and all the distortions, so that the Om may exist. And if any residual inclinations happen to present themselves, the divinity will bring them into balance and clear them out, and they will dissipate and disappear. But those that are determined to remain in the distortions cannot come back again. For even if we were to give you 100 souls living in the Om and in divinity, and moving and free-flowing with all that is nature and all that exists, and then we brought in one that was distorted, even 1/3 distorted, and brought it in amongst them, that destructiveness with which they exist will affect all of them. It will spread through all of them. The anguish, they will not overwhelm that one in divinity and love and light. Because if they cannot be in divinity, then they cannot be in divinity. It is simply that. You cannot teach someone to return to divinity. You cannot reason with someone to return to divinity. You can allow them to drop or to pull away that which is distorted and allow their own divinity to express itself. But it cannot be created in them or made to be in them. You cannot take a violent distortion, and all distortions are eventually violent. You cannot take one of these and then somehow straighten it out. That which is distorted needs to dissipate and go away, and that which is divine will be there and fill all spaces. We give you this information so that you do not become fixated on the attempts to approach returning to divinity in the ways that have been taught to you in the distorted darkness. For the ways, the paths that the distortions create are not in line with divinity. And if it is not working, then let it go.